Hello, my name is Jessica, and I'll be presenting a study run by Maura, Ming and Claire, me, and myself. And in our study, children and their parents learned to program their own conversational agents and spoke with us about their perceptions of these agents and what they actually wanted to see in future conversational agents. In terms of the results, we saw that people wanted agents to be more task-oriented than socially oriented. For example, participants would describe their ideal agents as doing something rather than connecting or conversing with these agents. We also saw that people wanted agents to lean slightly towards being more human-like than artificial or robotic, and parents felt especially this way. They also wanted agents to address their concerns. So for example, information security. And what was interesting is that children mentioned this more than parents did. We also found people trusted agents more than their parents or friends to give them correct information and thought agents were more friend-like after they engaged in the educational workshops. And we also found that children specifically felt agents were more human-like, warm, and dependable than parents did at various times during the workshops. This is all especially relevant today since agents like ChatGPT are becoming increasingly common and easily accessible. And other researchers have found that people are actually building relationships with these types of agents that can be modeled in the same way as human-to-human relationships, which has huge implications in terms of trust and misinformation spread and how we'll actually be interacting with computers in the future. And so digging deeper into the details of the study context, children and their parents engaged in workshops over Zoom, where we taught them to program agents using our Combo Blocks interface, which is a programming interface within MIT App Inventor where you can create your own conversational agents. And then we also engaged the participants in conversation about the societal impact of technology, like conversational agents, for instance. So here's one example of an agent that students can make using the Combo Blocks interface, which again is a block-based interface within App Inventor. Alexa, ask Talking Cookbook, what's the first step to make banana bread?
The first step is to preheat the oven to 350 degrees Fahrenheit, 175 degrees Celsius.
Alexa, ask Talking Cookbook, what's the next step?
Crack an egg into the mixing bowl.
You can see that the skill also caused something to show up on the app we developed in App Inventor. The skill can be accessed on an Alexa device like I did here on the Alexa app, or even in the App Inventor interface itself, which we'll show at the end of this video. All right, so here's an example of how a simple agent can be made in the Combo Blocks interface. First, you kind of have these blocks, puzzle blocks, you connect them together, you define what the agent is named, and then you also define what we call intents, which are just kind of phrases or things you can say to the agent that it'll recognize. And after you program in what the agent understands, you can also program how it responds to those intents, which I'll show in a second here. And once you have it all programmed out, you can test it. I think I mentioned that before, but you can test it in the App Inventor interface itself, or online in the Alexa Developer Console, or in any Alexa device that's out there.
App Inventor's mascot is a bee named Cody.
All right. So again, in terms of the study itself, we had questionnaires that asked participants what they thought about agents. For example, on a scale to 1 to 5, do you think Alexa is more of a friend or a coworker? And we did this before the programming tutorials, and then actually after they had learned to program these agents too. And then finally, again, after we did kind of these societal impact activities. And finally, kind of in between all of this, we had an ideation session where we asked participants what they might want to see in their future agents. And so they kind of wrote down these ideas of and descriptions of their ideal agents. Okay, so of the 99 pairs of children and parents who engaged in the workshops, there were roughly 49 participants who completed surveys, who were roughly evenly split across intersectional groups. And so digging deeper into the results themselves, one of the major results was that participants trusted agents more than their parents and friends to provide correct information. And we saw this across the board before and after the activities, and across the board in terms of parents and children from various countries. They all felt this way. And this to me is a huge concern, especially since generative AI agents like ChatGPT often give incorrect information, but will kind of state what they're saying like they are facts. So I think there's a ton of work to be done both on the education side of things to ensure people know how these systems work and how the systems are actually often incorrect. And then also on the agent design side of things to ensure that agents kind of qualify their agent or their answers instead of stating them like facts, and really encourage users to investigate things for themselves, just as a couple examples of how we can kind of change agent design. We also wanted to dig a bit deeper into participants' trust and figure out what actually contributed to that trust. So we did a thematic analysis of participants' responses, and we found that people thought about where the agents sourced their data, how the agents interpreted users' input, just the nature of the agent itself, and how agents are programmed when discussing their levels of trust. And so we recommend that designers actually think about these things and how they can create agents that innately disclose these things to help users calibrate their levels of trust towards agents to a healthy level, really making those agents transparent about this type of information. Then another major result was that participants thought of agents as more friends after the workshops than they did before the workshops. And this was really interesting to me as I could see it being very useful for pedagogical agents. So for example, if you're building a relationship with a teacher, often you're much better able to learn from them, which could also be the case for teacher agents if you're kind of building a relationship with these agents. Could also pose a problem though, especially if children form deep friendships with the agents and perhaps begin to overtrust them. So future research could investigate how agent personas change people's feelings of friendships towards agents and how we can actually foster appropriate levels of friendship and trust with agents through design of these personas. We also wanted to investigate what participants wanted to see in agents in the future, so that future designers can take this into account when creating their agents too. So in broad strokes, what we saw in participants' answers was that they lean towards having task-oriented agents rather than socially oriented agents, and having fairly balanced agents in terms of human-like versus artificial agents. Although children did lean slightly more towards having artificial agents than their parents did. And they said things like, I want my agent to be like a robot, but not like a human, because that would be a bit creepy. And so these types of results have been discussed a lot already in the literature, and really just emphasize how designers should consider the uncanny valley when designing their agents. So getting more into the details of what participants wanted in their agents themselves, you can see the major themes that emerged from our thematic analysis here. Unsurprisingly, a lot of the answers involve basic features that current agents already have. For example, like playing music or getting the weather information, but the rest of the themes can be grouped into kind of three major categories. So you can see on the graph, I have convenient agents, they wanted personalized agents, they wanted proactive agents. And so I grouped these into user-oriented agents. And so I'll use that term going forward in the presentation. And then another term was creating agents that have kind of enjoyable interactions. So that comes from approachable, friendly agents, familiar agents, or pop culture related kind of things that agents will say. Another thing was just having agents that are fun. So again, that's kind of like enjoyable interactions. And then the third theme was creating emotionally intelligent agents. And that comes from having agents address people's concerns and then also being culturally intelligent. And so something that I found really interesting, I mentioned this a bit before, But children spoke relatively more about ensuring agents could address their concerns than parents did, whether that was about security concerns or making sure the agent can kind of take action in an emergency, or that agents can really address humans' emotional needs too, and kind of engage in those types of conversations. So those are definitely things designers should also take into account, especially if they're designing agents for children. So to summarize, in order to create effective agents for children and parents, agent designers can create them with personas that foster appropriate user-agent trust, and create agents with a balance of task and social orientation. They can also just make sure they're considering the uncanny values they create these agents. And then finally, create agents that are user-oriented, enjoyable, and emotionally intelligent. And so our IDC paper has additional results and recommendations, so please feel free to take a look if you're interested. And then we also published a paper specifically on the pedagogical implications of the study and how you can teach people about agents to ensure that you're calibrating people's trust and making essentially healthy relationships with agents and people. And you can find those in the 2023 AAAI proceedings, so feel free to take a look there. Also, feel free to reach out to us. Thank you so much for listening, and we're excited to continue hearing about work in this area. Thanks so much.